All right, let's roll into the NFC here. We're going to start off with the Super Bowl champions out of the NFC East, Philadelphia Eagles, 14-3 last year. We're just all these records we're saying only regular season. We're not counting postseason records. And we did regular season.
Sure.
But they added AJ Dillon, which really the only big addition they had. They lost Mekhi Becton, Brandon Graham retired, Bryce Huff, and CJ retired. Which all I'm saying might be a conspiracy theory, but the only two times the Eagles won the Super Bowl in their last two Super Bowl wins, they had C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and they traded him away, and they didn't win. But they're going to be, it's the Eagles, they'll be good again. Jalen Hurts, pretty good quarterback. Everybody hates on him all the time. I think he's better than people give him credit for. I mean, yes, he has weapons. He has the greatest running back in the league right now. He has A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Like, he's got weapons to throw the ball to. But also, I feel like he holds his own. I mean, he is the tush push. We've seen teams try to recreate it, but they can't because they don't have a quarterback who can squat 600 pounds. Jalen Hurts is a dude. Their defense is going to be good. Their D-line, Georgia's D-line basically, but their D-line is massive. Their secondary is good. So it would be interesting. I think Philly goes 12-5 this year. Not as good as last year, but I still think they do good. They win games. They obviously make the playoffs. It just, if we remember 2 years ago now, they had that. It was like a weird lull where like it came out that everybody hated each other and nobody wanted to be friends with each other. And like everybody hated the coach and Jalen Hurts hated AJ Brown and all that shit. So if they can keep camaraderie together, their offensive line is, in my opinion, the best offensive line in the league. Lane Johnson's a stud. He's proved himself to be a stud. The rest of their rookie center last year played lights out. I think he was second team All Pro. Like he was a dude. But Eagles are going 12-5 again. They'll be good. Make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree, and I hate to just agree with you. You're very. I feel like thinking along the same lines. I look at it as 12-5, 13-4, and I don't just say because it's the easy pick, but there's always that worry or curse of the team that wins, other than Mahomes or like Tom Brady. But it's and I feel like overall there's two or three again. There's probably more solid teams 1 through 7 in my opinion in the NFC. But as far as like true contenders, there's really only in my mind 3 or 4. I mean, there's in my mind, and maybe you could say the same thing for the AFC. But I think that Philly's got to be obviously the favorite if they stay healthy. Great head coach, I said, but then the biggest thing is Jalen Hurts staying healthy because he's mostly stayed healthy. Been to 2 Super Bowls, won one already. Said they handled Kansas City, and I think that was partly an off day. Said, but they were. I'm sorry to say for Kansas City fan, but the better overall team. And I said, let's the elephant in the room. Like, I mean, MVP candidate Saquon Barkley. I've always been a huge fan of his. I mean, just the going outside the box, not to make, but like the way jumping over somebody backwards.
Yeah, that shit. I mean,
but the guy's a freak athlete. He can catch it out of the backfield. He's not afraid to go in between the numbers. Then again, you're having to get a versatile quarterback, and that's what made Philadelphia their bread and butter. Why they're going to be, in my opinion, the same thing. AFC Championship game at the least, bearing injury, and I have them actually going back to the Super Bowl this year. 13-4 is my prediction. But with Hurts and Brown, I said if Hurts gets hurt, I said it's going to be hard for them to get the ball because of what they do, like creating that play and having Saquon Barkley. So that play action, or out of the backfield at Barkley, and then having A.J. Brown, was a stud in Tennessee, 2 big wide receivers in Smith. And then you said, yeah, you mentioned Goddard. Like I said, they've got some offensive weapons where they stay healthy. And I don't say they added 5. They used their first 5 draft picks on their defense, which you saw what their defense did in the Super Bowl and late in the season last year, and going against a lot of other young quarterbacks. And so it's like Philadelphia, I feel like the sky's the limit. They have like the Chiefs, have a real legitimate chance. They've been to 3 Super Bowls, won 2 in the last several years, and so they're one of the only teams that can even come close, even having not in the same discussion. They can be in the discussion. They're not on the Chiefs level, but the only team, and they obviously one of only a handful of teams that actually beat the Chiefs, and they did it handily last year. Yeah. And they didn't really lose. They lost some pieces, but they still have Barkley. They still have Smith. They have all the main guys. The main thing for them is literally if Hurts stays healthy.
Yeah.
Because they have enough other depth, even in the 3 and 4 wide receiver spot. And again, the Philadelphia is another one of those where it's just a tough place to play. So anyway, Philly, I think it's the easy pick. Probably, in my opinion, probably going back to Super Bowl, at least an NFC Championship game appearance, and they'll be the division winners of the NFC East again this year.
They'll be good. Commanders last year, kind of a team that exploded on the scene. Nobody really thought we were going to get 12-5 out of them, but Jalen Daniels played lights out. Really, really good. Scary Terry finally got himself a quarterback. Now, we'll see what happens with him because he wants a new contract. He wants re-ups. But they added Deebo Samuel, which is, I think Deebo Samuel to Terry McLaurin is going to be an old Zach Ertz, but he still does Zach Ertz things. I'm very excited to see what this offense looks like. They lost Jeremy Chin, Dante Fowler. So, I mean, there's some pieces on defense there. But I say they go 11-6. They'll be good again. I mean, they're going to be good. They proved that last year. I feel like Dan Quinn kind of got, after the Super Bowl loss in Atlanta, he kind of lost his mojo. But then he goes to Dallas, gets his mojo back. And I feel like this team's primed and, like, they might, I don't know if they beat they'll beat I think they beat the Eagles at least once. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the number 2 seed and they also make an AFC or a NFC championship appearance, if not a really good divisional game, because they're good. I mean, unless Jalen Daniels like this has a terrible sophomore slump, I see them coming right back and just reloading.
Yeah. I think the ceiling's obviously very high because last year with Washington, they were playing with house money.
Yeah.
And so that's another one I wish that, not to boast, but I had told other people last year, was my prediction last year that came true, was I thought out of all the people that we were talking about that Jaden Daniels, and I will say biasly that I have always been kind of a Florida State / LSU fan, but I was a big believer in that Daniels would be one of, if not, should have been the rookie of the year before the season started. But I even myself, I didn't expect them to go. This is a team last year, like you said, that won 12. I have them losing a step just because I do have the NFC East being a little bit better, and their schedule, I have them going to probably about 11-6. But again, they were playing with house money. I agree with you on the Dan Quinn and knowing what it takes to say. And so, like, Washington to me is another one of those. I think they do make the playoffs. It's about that 11-6 range, and then their ceiling, they very well, in my opinion. And let's not add, like, he's a couple seasons removed from his best seasons, but Deebo Samuel was another one of those freak body types to put with, like you said, Scary Terry. So they've got, and he said you still have a proven guy with a Super Bowl ring with Zach Ertz. Bates is a 1-2 combo and as a tight end. Like, this is a team that's very balanced. The NFC I do see as being weaker. I wouldn't be 100% shocked because there's some solid teams. I think they have a higher ceiling than what teams like, let's say we'll get to later with like the Packers or Vikings, where they're going to win. They'll probably be in the playoffs. They're more consistent. And I can't even say necessarily more consistent because Washington was consistent last year. But at their best game and where they came in, the pieces they've added with Daniels, they're, I think, going to, like, they have the higher ceiling than these other teams that are very well balanced. And like I said, that's why I wouldn't be surprised if they lost in the divisional round.
Yeah.
But this is a team last year that they weren't flat out. They weren't supposed to. And, like, one of the feel-good fun stories was the Lions, and I'm hoping the Lions are still, I'm knocking on that door. They know they're in their best, their best years. Really fun. Love their coach, love their quarterback, love their players, love their mentality. Side note, how much fun? We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. But I'll just say it's like going into the way they beat Detroit last year. Yeah, and so it's just like, I said, that was with house money. So, like, I still think that, and they beat the Eagles too at the end, and they played them for 3.5 quarters or 3 quarters close in really Philly good. On the NFC Championship game as a rookie. So it's like, Washington's a scary team. I don't know if they have enough. They've added some nice pieces on offense. And the other thing I want to say too is, like, adding guys like Brandon Wagner, the linebacker, former from the Niners, his best years behind him, but still a solid former All-Pro player, and having Latimer and their defensive line. I just feel like between them and Philly, like, two of the better defensive lines in all of the NFC, Washington's a scary pick. I said, I think that I have them about the same range just because they had an easier schedule last year. And so I feel like they might lose a game less. But this is a 12-team win last year, and they have most of the pieces. They have the veteran presence. I don't see Daniels taking a huge step back. Yeah. So I have them as a playoff team, 11-6, and also second team out of the NFC East.
Yeah. Let's roll to Dallas here. Dallas went 7-10 last year. They had Miles Sanders, Javonte Williams, George Pickens, Kenneth Murray, and Solomon Thomas. They lost, in my opinion, two big pieces of their team, and Zach Martin retiring and DeMarcus Lawrence. Lost Eric Kendricks. They took an offensive lineman in the draft of Tyler Booker. So, I mean, you're not going to replace Zach Martin, obviously, but they're trying to replace him. Got a new coach. I have them going 8-9 just because it's the Cowboys. If Dak stays healthy all year, they'll be good. But also we talked about two really good teams in their division. Dak has George Pickens now, and CD Lamb to throw the ball to. So they'll be good, but it's also I feel like Jerry Jones. I mean, not trying to blame it on Jerry Jones, but I feel like as long as Jerry Jones has his hand in the pie, they're not going to be elite, in my opinion, because I feel like Jerry Jones does too much. And then, he's in the middle of a contract dispute with Micah Parsons. Micah doesn't want to come to practice. How can you,
Cowboys,
yeah.
they're going to look like the best team.
Yeah. They're going to, how are you, I'm not an NFL owner, but if you're an NFL owner, how are you going to go out to the media and talk shit on arguably your best player and one of the best top 5 defensive players in the league in general?
Yeah.
Micah Parsons. Yeah, Micah Parsons is a scary dude. Yeah. And how are you going to go out and bash him saying, "Oh, he's not doing what he's supposed to"? No, he's doing what he's supposed to. He's just living his life. But that's neither here nor there. It's just me judging Jerry Jones for having his finger in the pie too much.
No, I 100% agree about the Jerry Jones, and so they've won 1 or 2 playoff games since '95. So it sucks being a Cowboys fan, but I have him in that 8-9, 9-8. I said if Dak stays healthy, I said he's still in my mind. I said he's had some injury concerns as well. I said, but that top 12 or 14 on a good day, do you trust him? He's very capable if they make it to the playoff game to win a playoff game, but it's the Cowboys.
Yeah.
No offense. I said I am really interested to see CD Lamb and George Pickens together, if nothing else, for at least after the play action.
Yeah. Who knows what's going to happen?
But and Dak, I said Dak's still mobile enough. I said the problem for Dallas, besides inconsistency and injury on defense, is not having a consistent run game, which that used to be their bread and butter. With Witten and those years of Romo, and of course going back to Emmitt Smith, and so that's the biggest thing is giving Dak a run game so where he can do things. Not to expect him to do it in the same way, but like a Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I still have questions. Micah Parsons, like you said, top 3 or 4 perennial defensive player of the year type player. Where it's in my mind, biasly, yes, T.J. Watt, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons. Those are the first 3 names that usually come to mind on deep. And Trey Hendrickson, there's both Bosa brothers. There's a short list, and Micah Parsons is on that list. So like I said, to come out and talk smack on what's your best player, I didn't really get that. But
yeah,
but they said they've got guys that have been there before. I said I have them finishing the 8-9, 9-8, just because. Probably that I'm going to say that 9-8, just because it's that they're kind of like Pittsburgh in the sense of, they lose games. They lose games that they should win, but they also pick up 2 or 3. They have a good following, and they have this high standard of history where they don't necessarily hit it, and so they still both set of fans still talk like they're in that time frame, but at the same time they usually have enough skilled players, and Dallas is obviously a big time market. And I do believe that Prescott plays better than he did last year. Do I see them making the playoffs? Probably not. I have them on the outside looking in, or maybe that set they'll be that cuss team. But I also, because of, while I don't think it's the toughest league, you still have the Super Bowl champs, and I do believe in the Commanders. I do have Dallas finishing 3rd in that division.
Yeah. Leads us to the New York Giants at Russ Wilson, Jameis Winston, Javon Holland, Darius Slay. They lost some backup guys, but they didn't lose anybody big. They drafted Abdul Carter, which I feel like it's a great pickup for them. And they also drafted Jackson Dart in the 1st round. So their quarterback competition is Russ Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jay Dart. They got Cam Scabadoo, which I'm very biased on him. He's probably my favorite rookie running back, other than R.J. Harvey because he's on the Broncos. But I love Scabadoo. If he didn't play for the Giants, I'd probably buy his jersey. But he plays for the Giants, and I'm not wearing a Giants jersey. But last year they went 3-14. Dayball has shown that he can win games. Like he won games with Daniel Jones. I mean, Saquon Barkley, but Daniel Jones, he won games. So this year, I say they go 7-10. Malik Neighbors is in the second year, and then I don't. Yeah, Scabby Boo's probably going to get a lot of the carries, but Jameis Winston's always fun. He can win you a couple of games if he plays. If Russ Wilson's the starter for a little bit, and then Jackson Dart feels like the guy that has a little bit of edge to him. Like he's going to go out there and be like, all right, you know what? I'm slinging this rock. I don't care. He's kind of got that gunslinger in him. He proved that at Ole Miss. Like Lane Kiffin just said, throw the ball down the field. Go for it, buddy.
Yeah. I have the Giants as, of course, the bottom of the NFC East this year. I have them sticking about the same 3-14, 4-13, which is too bad because in that market, it's always nice to see them. And for whatever reason, I'm not even sure why, but I could go off of several different players. I'm going off tangent, but that's kind of always one of my NFC teams. But I just don't think there's enough pieces there. They're still picking up the remnants of coaching changes and losing Saquon Barkley and figuring out an identity. Russell Wilson, I haven't seen anything. So in Denver, it was "Let's Ride," and Pittsburgh, it's "Here We Go." So I haven't seen his cheesy slogan for New York. But we're talking football. I said this is the team. Let me just go through the Giants' schedule real quick. I mean, it said, of course, being in the NFC East, of course, you're going to play the Eagles twice. You play Washington twice. This is the year they play the AFC West, which you and I both agree is one of at least the top two. So you're going to play Kansas City. They play at Denver. This is in October, November, consecutive stretch. At Denver, at Philadelphia, San Francisco, Green Bay, at Detroit. You're playing, that's a brutal schedule. I don't feel like they have the piece they play, even at New England. And so what I believe in Mike Vrabel. So it's like, I don't see the Giants winning more than 4 games. Malik Neighbors is a nice story. But and Russell Wilson, and that sounds crazy to say, and I could be wrong. I think the ceiling for this team is probably a 6-11 because Russell Wilson's still.
Yeah.
We saw at the end of last year. He's very limited, very limited, and he played. I didn't want to be a believer in him being a Steeler fan. But that first half of the year, the balance he brought, still that stability, still can throw a deep ball. It's just he's got limitations, or still makes some late game errors, but he can still not necessarily consistently, but win those late games. I don't see New York being super competitive, but in a league based on parity and a guy that's been there before at the end of his career, I think that Wilson can win some games. But just like I said, their schedule and what the other offensive pieces they have, and with Wilson, I think will do better than what some people think, and maybe the Giants. But I don't feel like they have enough pieces. I think that 4-13, 6-11 is the ceiling for the Giants. Yeah.
So
that is a brutal schedule.
Yeah,
at Washington, at Dallas, the Rams, the Chargers.
Those are teams that would be good.
Yeah.
Let's roll into this is probably top between the AFC West and NFC North toughest divisions, in my opinion, to play in, especially these last couple of years. Last year, the Lions win it going 15-2 with about 1 million injuries, about as many injuries as you could think of. Losing your stud defensive line, everybody gets hurt. Still go 15-2. They didn't really add anybody. They added Chris Hubbard, or they lost Chris Hubbard. So that's gonna help. That's gonna hurt them on defense. But besides, they're reloading again. Aiden Hutchinson will be back this year. But the biggest question mark again with this team is, one, can Jared Goff not throw 500 interceptions in a game? I mean, they still won, but can Goff play consistently enough to get them wins? And also, they lost their offensive coordinator to the Bears, who we're going to talk about here coming up. But I'm interested to see if the David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs dual backfield again is going to be near as effective, because Ben Johnson had all kinds of schemes, all kinds of stuff drew up for him. I think they're going to be good again. But I'm taking them at 12-5. Dan Campbell still brings that energy. He brings that juice. He's probably one of his top 5 favorite coaches for me in the NFL. Yeah. He just brings the energy.
Sorry, not to interrupt.
They're gonna be a good team.
Yeah.
It's just, I think 12-5. It's gonna hurt not having Ben Johnson, because Ben Johnson did all 2 of the best running backs in the NFL in the same backfield playing. You can't forget about St. Brown out there running routes. Laporta at tight end. Laporta is a solid tight end. He kind of had a sophomore slump, but he's also still a dude. They'll be good. It's just they lost both their coordinators. So I say 12-5. There's going to be some learning pains, growing pains. I say they'll be good again because Dan Campbell, I mean, he revived an organization that was dead.
No, I said so. Again, I hate to just piggyback. I feel like I have my own idea, but I have them in that 12-5. This is a team again last year that won 15 games. And I think that's part of it too. Is just like with the NFL, even with parity, it's so hard to get to that level. So there'll probably be a couple teams that get that number 14, 13, 15 wins.
Yeah.
But the Lions are that team in the NFC that I do think will make it to the NFC Championship game. I do think they know that they're within that window. This is the third or fourth straight year. And going into last year, people might not realize and they made a big deal about it at the time. But from whenever Dan Campbell had that speech his first year when they were kind of like 2-6 or whatever, 1-7,
yeah.
and he made this speech and everybody made fun of him. And then since that point, from there on to the playoffs last year, they had tied to the same record as Kansas City, as the Lions. And so, to me personally, that's my favorite coach to watch, Dan Campbell. If I was going to be a player, I love the energy he brings. I love they had so many injuries, and they didn't care. We're going to win. It was by that team.
They were bringing guys off the street on a Wednesday to play on
Sunday. They fought through it. And that's what I was going to say earlier, was I can't imagine what it'd be like to see Dan Campbell in a Super Bowl. I'm going to exaggerate here, but a 4th and 16 from his own 20 down by 7 points.
Just slinging it.
Yeah. And so you kind of touched on a couple of things. Having Aiden Hutchinson back, I said he was off to a monster start. Might have been hard to keep that pace. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But Defensive Player of the Year, another one of those that's on that short list for Defensive Player of the Year. Candidates at the beginning of the year. That defense is going to be better. And then I said I have that 12-5, 13-4. I do have them winning the division. I believe in Jared Goff. He's revitalized his career. I like what Campbell brings. And he said you have a great 1-2 combo. I said, I'm a huge fan and believer in Gibbs and Montgomery still having that for 1-2 combo. Porta, they're just very balanced, right? They have two good tight ends, two good running backs. St. Brown's kind of like I hate to say it, you go other players, but I'm going to go Pittsburgh, but like Antonio Randall, just a good slot guy, or he can play anywhere. He can go on the outside and burn it. He's like a Hines Ward type. He's going to get his numbers. He may not have the body size, but he'll see the stat line. You might not notice. It's oh, he had 9 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown. Yeah. He's consistent. And like I said, with that coaching staff, like I said, I'm a huge Campbell fan. I have him to that 12-5, 13-4. The one concern for me is, again, I'm a slave to the schedule. But here at the end, they have road trips to Kansas City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, Cincinnati, and the Rams. That's a pretty brutal stretch. That's where I feel like the 11-6, 12-5, like the 12-5, but they're still as good as anybody. Their offense should still be good. They know that they're within that. They're in their last couple of years of being in that window, and it was that's what was so disheartening. I hope they don't let that loss last year, because they built everything. It reminds me of, I'm going to go on a baseball terminology, but with the Royals when they went all in on 2015.
Yeah.
The Lions went all in. They wanted that 1 seed, and they got it. So it was disheartening the way they lost, the way they did. They got off to a slow start, turned the ball over, which Goff had kind of got rid of those mistakes from coming from the Rams. So, but if they stick to that, I think the Lions will be just fine. I think they'll be.
They'll be good. To the Vikings here, 14-3 record, stupid good record. Having two 14+ win teams in the same division is wild. But they add Jordan Mason from the 49ers, who filled in McCaffrey last year, Ryan Kelly, Van Ginkel, and Jeff Okudah. They lose Sam Darnold, who breakout player last year. I don't think anybody saw that coming. He hasn't been on a good team. They lost Cam Akers and lost Stephon Gilmore on their defense, so that's going to hurt a little bit. But this year, it's looking like it's going to be J.J. McCarthy as their starting quarterback. They still have Jay Jefferson. They got T-Hawk. They still have dudes. I'm going to say they're going to go 12-5.
I'm glad, because I didn't have the right, so we didn't have the right number again, same number again.
Yeah. I say they go 12-5 because McCarthy's he didn't play at all last year, but he seems like he's a dude. He won at Michigan. He seems like he's a competitor. He's got arguably, in my opinion, top 2 wide receiver in the league. With Jay Jefferson, it's between him and Chase for top receiver in the league, in my opinion. But he's got weapons around him. O'Connell he seems like a really good coach. He seems like he's bringing I mean, it revived Sam Darnold's career. Darnold got paid $100 million to go play in Seattle. So I think they're going to be good. They'll be good again, but they're in the same line. They're in the same division as the Lions and the Packers. The Bears might steal a win because the Bears used to be doing Bears things. So.
No, I think that's a good take. I said I have the Vikings probably finishing somewhere around the 10-7. I haven't taken a little bit of a step back. Maybe the divisional round is the ceiling in my eyes, but I do have them most likely making the playoffs. My biggest question is I don't think it can be understated. Again, we're talking about another guy where Sam Darnold was inconsistent, but had shown flashes. And like I said last year, especially the first 2/3 of the season, the numbers he was putting up, I think that loss is going to hurt Minnesota a lot more than people admit. Now, because of the culture there, and they have a hard time getting over the hump. But that's another team I always liked in the NFC.
Yeah.
But I have them actually finishing third in this division, which, like you said, it's hard because I agree with you that the NFC North is probably one of the top two divisions, and so whoever finishes in the basement is still probably that 16 to 20 top team. The upper half of the NFL in general, even as whoever ends up finishing fourth. But we'll get to that in a minute, I'm assuming next. So I have Green Bay finishing ahead of them. I'm not a believer in McCarthy. They still do have Justin Jefferson, still in the middle of his prime. Having Javon Hargrave, former Steeler, former Eagle, former Niner, great freaking player in the middle. They had a good defense that can stop the run. Harrison Smith still a high quality safety. So they still have a good secondary. They have a lot of nice pieces. That was another one of those teams I was talking about earlier about having good balance. But as far as the ceiling, do you see them keeping it in a shootout? It's in the ceiling of even a Washington, let alone a Detroit or Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But I do have Philadelphia, Minnesota most likely making the playoffs, taking a step back. I have maybe, and this might be high, but 10-7, maybe even 9-8. A solid team. I said, but I have them finishing third in the division.
Rolling to the Packers here, 11-6 last year. Add McCole Hardman, Zach Tom, solid offensive lineman. They lose A.J. Dillon, Jair Alexander. So, they lose some guys, but they also took, for the first time since, it was the 90s, late 90s. It might have been way past, longer than that. But they took Matt Golden out of Texas, wide receiver, which Packers seem to really struggle to find wide receivers. Don't know why, but they just do. They don't have to, since Tay Adams, I feel like it's just been a revolving door of who's their number one, who's their number one. Because Christian Watson looked like he was going to be a guy there for a while, and then just fell off. He's been injury prone. So it'll be interesting. I'd have them going, they went 11-6 last year. I say they go, I don't want to put them at 12-5 because the other guys are going 12-5 too, but I feel like 11-6, 12-5 is a good record for them. They're going to be a good team. Their defense is going to play good. They have arguably the best home field advantage in the NFL, especially later in the season. They're playing on the frozen tundra in Lambeau. Jordan Love, with his injuries last year, he still proved that he can win games in clutch situations, throwing to nobodies.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what they do. They got Josh Jacobs last year. Josh Jacobs, a really great running back for them, especially when it gets cold, like it does in Lambeau. He's a dog. He runs the ball hard. So the Packers seem to drop a couple games they shouldn't. They also seem to win a couple games they shouldn't be in this game, and somehow they beat somebody. So I say the Packers 11-6, 12-5, same as last year. It'll just be interesting to see if LaFleur can get them over the hump in the playoffs, and Jordan Love can take another step to be an elite quarterback. Because right now I have him in the good tier probably.
Yeah.
He's a decent quarterback. He's consistent. If they want to win a playoff game, then he needs to take a step, especially with no offensive help, so to say.
No, I think that's a good take. I have them right at that 11-6, finishing second in the NFC North. So I still have questions. I said they have some nice pieces with Reed and Wicks, and like you said, picking that wide receiver Golden from Texas out of that's going to be interesting. How much they can get him up to speed. Love's one I really liked a lot, but I said I wasn't sure that he'd be a quality starter. He's obviously shown that the last 2 or 3 years, that the growth the last even 2 years, and in that playoff loss 2 years ago, when they honestly had their opportunities to beat San Francisco.
Yeah.
So I am a Love believer, and I said, and I just think that I think they'll be a 2 seed. I do think they'll be a playoff team, and like you said, they're kind of one of those teams every year too, where they're right in the mix of a playoff. They lose games they shouldn't, but they win. Like, you know what I mean? It's like they have enough of a fan base no matter where they go, and say it for what it is. But like I said, they're always one of the high quality teams of the NFL, and so like I just think that I have them finishing second, probably that 11-6, maybe 10. I have them 11-6, finishing second in the NFC North.
Yeah, they'll be good. I mean, it's a tough division. So we're rolling on to.
Hold on, sorry. I do want to say too. I do also love last year. I think it was kind of an underrated thing that people didn't talk about a ton. But even maybe as a former Raider, it's like you can't underestimate like how much that offense means, and if he stays healthy with the 1-2 punch. But Josh Jacobs going with Jordan Love and how much he helped Green Bay's offense and how underrated he was when used properly, even with the Raiders. And so, like I said, that's something else where if the defense takes a step, it's like Green Bay could be a team that knocks somebody off.
Yeah, they'll be. Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting, especially if they get home field advantage in the playoffs. Like,
Right.
Nobody wants to go play in Lambeau
Right.
in January.
Right.
But
I think the one thing that'll stop them though is it goes back to in the NFC. I really feel like it goes back to Philadelphia.
yeah, you got to go
and
play in
Detroit.
Philly or you got to go play in Detroit.
Right. And even we'll get to it later, but with the NFC West, even though he's like older, like with Matthew Stafford, the guys
Yeah.
I don't know if they can put something consistently together enough
Yeah.
to make a run. But we'll see.
Let's roll into the Bears here. The Bears, 5-12 last year. Caleb
The
Williams. They add Joe Thuney, which is an amazing pickup for them, like, in the guard position. They got they signed a bunch of defensive pieces. They don't really lose anybody. They're kind of reloading here. They're getting ready to go. They take Colton Loveland out of Michigan, tight end, solid tight end for them. But it's also, I don't know if it's hard to tell because obviously it seems like almost everything that you see on the internet of Caleb Williams is always negative, like it's always bad, and it's hard to pick. It's hard to know if he's actually going to take that step. And he's also the Bears, and they've never had a 4,000-yard passer. So I mean, who knows if it's going to work out? But I have them going 7-10. I say they improve. Ben Johnson brings a level of play. DeAndre, he's going to use Swift. He's going to use Swift. He's going to use DJ Moore. He's going to use the skill guys, but also it's the Bears. They play in, top 2 toughest division, like we said. It'll be interesting to see how they play and how it works out. But I say 7-10. I could see him being worse than 5-12 as well because again, it is the Bears.
The Bears.
The Bears.
Well, first I just feel like not to waste more time. I feel like I gotta get the Bears. Like Coach Dick versus a Hurricane. Who wins? Former Saturday Night Live reference there. So, but I have Chicago going that 7-10 range, and that's I feel like being generous. Just because I've never been a huge believer, but Caleb Williams has shown sparks, and he got off to a pretty good start last year. I don't know if it's all 100% his fault either. I don't know if he has enough offensive pieces.
Yeah.
And so, but he definitely had shown glimpses. I said, I don't know if he was the answer in the long term, but he's definitely got all the skills or talent or in himself. And so I have him in that 7-10 range. Having Cole Kmet and like DeAndre Swift is in the backfield, like they have some nice pieces, a decent run game. They bring that physicality. That's something that Chicago always brings. I said having Sweat and Jared on the defensive line, and Trayman Edmonds is another one. From Buffalo, like towards the end of his career, with some nice veteran depth. And so, like I said, I think that, like you said, this being in the NFC North and how competitive that division is, that they're probably looking at. My guess they'll pick up a couple games because those divisional games are usually close, but probably 2 of 4 in their own division. I have them at that 7-10 range. I'll keep it simple.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Sorry to my brother-in-law and my dad, Bears fans, but
I think we all know Bears fan we feel bad for.
right.
Like
It's like I tell my son, you made that choice.
That's on you, Ben.
Yeah.
But let's roll to the NFC South here. Interesting division, in my opinion. I will start out with last year's division winners and my top 5 favorite quarterbacks. Baker Mayfield. They went 10-7 last year. They re-signed Chris Godwin. Sterling Shepard, kind of on the end of his career, comes in. They signed Harrison Reddick, who didn't play in the Jets. He signed the He signed a big, I think it was like $130 million deal. Like, it's a bunch of guaranteed money and didn't play a single snap. But they still have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They took he was like the number 3 receiver at Ohio State last year. He's number 2. He's number 2 for them. But he's a great receiver. I've seen he looks really good. But I have them winning the division again, just because who knows what the Falcons are going to be with Penix, and we'll get into that. And the Panthers, I mean, again, hopeful team, but who knows? But I have them going 11-6. Baker Mayfield. I mean, my favorite highlight from last year, one of my favorite highlights is Baker Mayfield rolling out to the right, stiff arming Nick Bosa, and still throwing the ball down the field for a first down. Like, Baker Mayfield just has an edge to him. He just brings energy. He's got Tristan Wirfs. He's got Vita Vea on defense. Devontae David's still there. He's a little bit older. And then he's still got Jamal Dean in the back end. I feel like this is a dangerous team that if they get hot, you don't want to play them because they got weapons everywhere. And Baker Mayfield's, for lack of a better term, Baker Mayfield thinks he's him because Baker Mayfield has that cocky energy.
He's like dog.
Yeah, he's a dog. He doesn't care. It's Baker Mayfield. He just lets it fly.
Yeah.
He might throw 3 picks, but he's going to come back and throw 4 touchdowns. Like,
Yeah. No, I think it's a good pick. I do have them also win the division this year. I said I have them because of the schedule, probably around the 11-6 range as well, just because they don't have a gauntlet of a schedule and being in that division. And I just said, I'll be honest, I didn't want to like Baker. So just being OU instead of, the incident with Kansas at KU, and maybe that's reading too much in one moment instead of being a former Brown. I said, but it's almost like he's another one of those guys like Joe Flacco where it's like, it's almost impossible not to root for him because he gives Cleveland their first. That's why I say Cleveland doing Cleveland things. But gets them their first playoff win in 30-some years or whatever. They beat my team's ass. I said, and then they get rid of him the next year. He has one bad year. He has some injuries, but then the year after that, they just get rid of him. Then he's kind of looking for a job with the Rams. Now, since he's come back to Tampa Bay, he's in that top 12 or 14 as far as just pure production. And I like the fact that he's not afraid, even being undersized. He's that guy that if it's 3rd and 7, is not afraid to take a hit and run right up the middle.
Yeah.
Shane Falco style. Go replacements reference there.
Yeah.
But he does. He has that swagger, and it's hard not to respect it. And
Shane
he's
Falco
fun.
hasn't played in years.
Right.
Should be well rested.
Right.
Great move.
But no, Baker is one of those guys where he's fun to watch. He's going to fight till the very end. A couple of years ago, like in New Orleans and like some of those other teams, like really competitive. Like he's won playoff games a lot better than people give him credit for. Weak division. I have them. Like I said, I have them staying about that 11-6, 10-7, just because I said the schedule's not too hard. Winning the division, and I think it's another good take by you in the sense of I said that's a team where we were talking about a minute ago with the NFC North. Those wild card teams, whether it's the Falcons or Cowboys, I doubt it. But
like somebody in there.
But that Packers Vikings right, like they win the division. Like I'm not going to be surprised to see Tampa Bay in the divisional round win one against one of those teams at home and Baker Mayfield. So like it's really interesting. They've added some nice pieces, and I think that I actually do think that they'll make it to the second round of the playoffs, and that's not because they don't. It's because of Baker Mayfield.
Yeah,
and they still have Mike Evans, end of his career, so it's still a stud wide receiver, still a big body. They have a good run game. They have a good defense. I have them winning the division.
Let's roll to the next team here. Very interesting team, in my opinion, just purely off of what they did with the quarterbacks last year. With the Falcons going 8-9 last year, Falcons go 8-9. Kirk Cousins gets benched for Michael Penix, who they traded up for after they gave Kirk a $130 million guaranteed deal, which is, I don't know nothing about quarterbacks. It's like, what are we doing? Because there's a saying, this is more of a college football saying, but if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterback.
Yeah.
Because you have one guy. But Penix looks like he's going to be the starter this year, at least to say. They have, this is just me and my fantasy drive. We're doing fantasy drive after this. But they still have Kyle Pitts. Somebody's going to take him early. But they have Kyle Pitts who, he might have a breakout year. I'm trying to sell you guys on taking him so I get somebody else.
Yeah.
But they have Drake London, Bijan Robinson. Like, they have a great defense, or they have a great offense. Their defense is good. I mean, they're not world breakers by any means, but this team has a really good chance of being really explosive. but it also has a chance of being absolute shambles. Because last year, Bijan seemed to like he'd be hot for 3 weeks, and then he'd play some mediocre team and have 50 yards and 2 fumbles. Like, it's just hot or cold. Which also he was a rookie, so like he was young. But I say I have them going 9-8. They'll win some games. Kind of an easy division to play in, but also like Penix has to prove that he's a guy, and maybe if Penix doesn't play bad, did they put Kirk back in? Like, what do we? It's just interesting to see how they're going to play with all of that. And like the defense, I can't name anybody off the top of my head on their defense. Like they're a good defense. They're gonna they get stops, but they're not the best defense. They're not like I said. They're not world breakers.
Yeah, no, I have them too finishing second in the division. I think the Saints are going to be better than what people think, but they're still bottom 4 or 5 in the NFC, in the NFC in general. So just by default, I have the Falcons probably going about that 8-9 spot, 8-9 record. Like you said, Bijan Robinson is an absolute stud. Penix, I think is I don't think he's the long term answer. So he had some nice flashes. Has played decent in the preseason. Kyle Pitts still above average tight end. Nothing flashy. Drake London still a great wide receiver. That's just it. Raymond McLeod, so a guy that's been there in Buffalo and places like that. So it's like they've got some people that have been in the league. I said, but they don't have anything that, to me, other than like Robinson on offense, or like maybe if you want to say London and Pitts, it's a bit like that really jump off the page offensively. I think that they'll finish second in the division, 8-9. They just don't have, like we were talking about Tampa a minute ago, where you have Godwin and Evans. You said that who's the real 1-2 company? Is it Mooney? Is it McLeod? I don't know who their 2 wide receiver is. And if Robinson goes down, that's half your offense.
Yeah, that's
so I just don't. They've got, and it is nice that if Penix does struggle, Kirk Cousins is a guy that, going from a couple of years ago, another guy that's obviously been in the league. First of all, I don't know how many people we have that are listening that have watched the quarterback and said, but like, he's a likable dude.
Seems like a really genuine guy.
That's great.
Yeah, I love Kirk Cousins to death. So he's a nice backup guy. If Penix struggles, where he can get some of those wins where they wouldn't show him the win just because, you know what I mean. So, but I don't see them being true competitors or a playoff team. I have them second in the division, but that's just because the division's so weak. I have them finishing 8-9.
So on to the Panthers here. I have the Panthers going 7-10.
Whoa.
I'm going 7-10. Bryce Young showed some flashes at the end after he got benched. So I say they get a little bit better. J.C. Horn gets extended for a 4-year, $100 million. But again, they don't have any. They don't really have any world breakers. It's really Bryce Young out there just doing what he can to survive. I have him 7. I don't have much to say about these guys just because it's the Panthers. They're fucking after Cam Newton after they got rid of Cam Newton and Ron Rivera. It's been kind of been the dog days out there. They got so close, and then they just and then like they traded McCaffrey away. It's just been
I
mean, they have Adam Thielen. I love Adam Thielen. He's a undrafted guy. We turned it into a veteran career, but besides that, I mean, I'm sorry if you're a Panthers fan. They'll steal a couple games here and there.
Yeah,
but they're not gonna.
And I hate to just piggyback off of last year just because it's the easy pick, but I feel like they won 5 games last year. I think they'll win 5 games this year. Like I do, it seems because I think it's one of those situations where you can't get around it. It does also matter where you get drafted, and nothing. And I love days of Luke Kuechly and Steve Smith and some of those guys like from the Panthers.
Dudes.
Been to that stadium, great fans, but I mean they're just going whatever because they have a whatever team. But having that draft pick, I said we'll see as a rookie. It's always hard to count on that production out of a rookie, especially in a situation like that. Unless you're talking about padding stats at the end of the game. But getting that Arizona wide receiver McMillan, like I think he could be a good wide receiver in the NFL. But again, there's just too many question marks. I said I like Bryce Young. He's got a good attitude. I feel like he says the right things. And it's nice too to have Andy Dalton if he gets hurt or they have that as a backup option. But and Trevor Hubbard, another one of those former, like he's just fun to watch.
Yeah.
Runs hard. I like him a lot. I said, but like, and Adam Thielen, another one, great wide receiver in Minnesota. Like has those receptions, but I think it's the situation he's in, and like he's towards the again 2/3 of his career is back at. Still a solid player. Will be a security blanket, I'm sure, for Bryce Young just for the receptions. But too many questions on defense, and I have them right in that same spot they finished last 5-12.
Yeah.
I have them finishing bottom of the basement of the NFC South. Again, I think there'll be a 3 or 4 bottom team of the NFC.
Roll on to the Saints here. I have the Saints. They went 5-12 last year. They get Kellen Moore as their head coach. They sign Cam Akers, Brandon Cooks, Jawan Johnson. Chase Young resigns, which Chase Young, since injury, hasn't been the same Chase Young as before, but he's still a solid defensive rusher. But they went 5-12. I feel like it's a rough situation. They're in what we call cap hell.
Yeah.
I remember like 2 weeks last year they were like $200 million or $150 million over the cap, like a week before the deadline. They have solid. I mean, Alvin Kamara's he's on his last legs. And they have like Cam Jordan on defense. He's probably last year here, but their quarterback situation is mind-boggling to me. With Tyler Schlaw, a 26-year-old rookie, they got Spencer Rattler. Derek Carr retires because of a shoulder injury, which that sucks. Derek, I couldn't cheer for him because he was on the Raiders, but I always liked him as a quarterback. He was always consistent. He had a chip on his shoulder. Who's their other quarterback? There were 3. Oh, that guy that took the pictures looking kind of fruity last year. But I have him going 4-13, 5-12 again.
Yeah.
They'll win some games, but I don't. It's just they might surprise because Kamara still is an X factor. Chris Olave still. he's a good receiver, but the quarterback play is what gets me. I don't know unless one of these guys can solidify himself and have a good year. And in my opinion, they're in the basement of the NFC South.
That's a good take. I said I have them about that 5-12. I have them by a tiebreaker, finishing above Carolina. But for the third, fourth, like towards the bottom, at least NFC South and the NFC in general, just because you already touched on it, quarterback-driven league. And so, like Spencer Rattler was one of the ones I feel like was underrated coming out of college. One of those Texas, but it's like, is he just that because he's that Texas Tech offense, like, and putting those numbers up. I said, but and the guy that like the 26-year-old rookie Tyler Shaw. Out of Louisville, like he's fun to watch. But again, you're relying on a rookie. These are like Olave's still a good receiver, but he's not as that's your number one. Brandon Cooks, Cedric Wilson, those are guys that have been in the league. But it's if that's those are your dogs. I said like offensively they'll struggle. Defensively, like I said, they've got Chase Young, Cameron Jordan, Justin Reed, Tyrann Mathieu, great guys. I said, but they're in the very back half of their careers. Like guys that have been there, still better than a lot of other. Other. This, I don't know.
It's not a bad team. It's just
but those guys are in the back half of their career. Like they'll probably have glimpses, like where like they put something together, they'll win some games because it's the NFL. But I feel like I said you could be right. They could be at the bottom. I have them finishing above Carolina, even though I'm more of a fan. Like obviously with the situation in Carolina with the quarterback, but. Take your pick between the Saints and Panthers. I think they'll be the bottom two.
You could really flip a coin.
Weak division. Yeah,
you could flip a coin and be like, who's gonna? Let's roll on to last year. In my opinion, one of the most interesting, at least one of the most fun divisions to watch because I'm pretty sure every team, if I remember right, every team here went 1-1 against each other last year in divisional play. So NFC West, Rams win it last year, 10-7. Matt Stafford, Sean McVay. Matt Stafford, obviously, proven guy. He's in his last. He signed a new contract this year. There for 2 years. Yeah, he got a 2-year contract. So I mean, this is probably his last re-up. He's probably done after this. He did what he wanted to. He went out, won a Super Bowl. But Matt Stafford, Devontae Adams signs out there, which will be interesting. Tutu Atwell signs out there. You got to think they got rid of Cup. but they still have Puka Nacua. They have their running back's really good. Cam Akers, he got re-up this offseason. And it's also, at the end of the day, everybody, because they haven't been as good, but Sean McVay is still, in my mind, top 2 or 3 offensive-minded coaches in the game right now. He's good. Yeah. And their defense will be good. McVay's fucking awesome. It's just because, I mean, it's also a younger guy, so kind of like gravitate toward him because I want to be a coach. But it's the Rams. It's a rough division, but they go 10-7 last year. I say it could go. Matthew Stafford's kind of dealing with some injuries right now. He hasn't been in camp or anything, so Jimmy G would be their backup. But Jimmy G has shown flashes. Jimmy G's shown flashes he can be an elite quarterback, but Jimmy G has also shown flashes that he can be.
His passes.
Yeah, he can show passes.
You call that a prime. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Super Bowl appearance gets paid $1 billion. He didn't get paid $1 billion, but he got paid an outrageous contract with San Francisco, and then just lost his starting job to Brock Purdy. So, but I have him going. If Stafford comes back, I don't want to be the what if guy, but if Stafford comes back, I can get him. They'll get 10 wins again. Stafford's consistent. He's got Devontae Adams now to pair with Puka Nacua. Obviously, Adams is on the back of his career too, but
15-2 picks.
Yeah.
Might be 350.
yeah, who knows? Like Stafford's so hot or cold. So I'm gonna go 10-7 again. And it's Seattle's a tough place to play when you go play Seattle. It's tough to go play in the desert. I'm guessing Santa Clara it's hit or miss, but it's 10-7. Matthew Stafford. I mean, it's still Matthew Stafford in the day. He's old. He still has flashes. You still see him rocking deep all down the field.
Yeah, I think that's a good take. This is one of those divisions where it may not catch a lot of headlines. I said maybe because we're in the Midwest. I said the NFC West is, to me, there's the Cardinals as the 4 seed, and I'll get to that in a minute, out of the NFC West. And then I can literally see 1 out of 3 for any of the other 3 teams that finish in first, second, or third. So I can see the Rams being anywhere from the winning the division to being the third in the division. And I'll get to that in a minute. Why, as far as that's kind of a bold prediction that I don't hear a lot of people talking about within the division. But I agree with you. I think they'll be that 10-7 just because in a weaker NFC, in my opinion, in a weaker NFC and Stafford, and like you said, they still have Puka. They have some nice. Losing Cooper Kupp, I think, is going to affect them a lot more than what people let on. I said, but Sean McVay is, again, one of those short list top 8 head coaches, has been there, great offensive mind, and I think one of the top 5 or 6 impacts, even though he's in the latter half of his career and didn't have as much of an impact in New York, but I still think there's still plenty of good ball left in Devontae Adams, and put him in that situation. I have them at 10-7, but I'm sorry to take the easy route out of this. But I don't even know if I have a prediction as far as I can see them winning the division. But we'll get to when we talk about Seattle and San Francisco. I do think that the Rams will be a playoff team. But I don't know if that's going to be a wild card or division winner, just because I think a lot. I'll just say this now: is that I do feel like people are sleeping on the Niners. That took a step back. A lot of people have them outside the top 10 because of other pieces they lost. But I think the Niners are going to be. Again, we're talking about the Eagles and the NFC. Well, who else has been on the Chiefs level? Well, they've been to 3 Super Bowls. I'm a huge believer in Shanahan. Having McCaffrey back, if he stays healthy, having Ayuk still. I'm not trying to go off subject, but put the Niners. And then what Seattle's added too, having Cooper Kupp and having some of those other guys in Seattle, and Sam Darnold. If we get what we saw the first 2/3 of in Minnesota, in Seattle, and the home field advantage, and the running game of Seattle. So what's that have to do with the Rams? I said, I can see, surprisingly, this team, I wouldn't be surprised if they were the ones that have 3 teams in the NFC make it. Instead of the North, even though you think of last year, the North did it, and they have the more balance. But there's such a ceiling. We don't know what Seattle's going to be like. We don't know what version of the Rams are we going to get. What Ram of the Niners? Yeah. So I'm sorry to take a cop out. I don't know. I don't have a division winner for this division. But I do feel like the Rams will make the playoffs. But again, I can see any one of these three teams
Yeah, it's gonna
making finishing within first and third.
Yeah,
I think we all can agree that the number 4 is going to be the Cardinals.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
no offense.
There-
Sorry. That's too
I
bad.
agree. Roll to Seattle here. Seattle 10-7 last year. This year, get Sam Darnold. Obviously, you talked about MVS, who has shown flashes of being. He's a good speedster guy. Shaquille Griffin resigns, a solid cornerback. Cooper Kupp, obviously. So it's interesting to see. Interesting to see what will happen. Like you said, like who knows what they're gonna get. I have Seattle. If I'm just gonna say it, I'm gonna say I have Seattle going 9-8, taking a step back. I mean, again, it's a really good home field advantage. I mean, the Legion of the 12th man is kind of dead, but it's still the 12th man stadium. It's still a tough place to play because you're on the West Coast, especially if you're an East Coast team having to fly out there. But I like 9-8. I think Sam Darnold has a good career. Kenneth Walker's a solid running back. It just who knows what's gonna. Like you said, this is the definition of NFL parity. Who know? Like besides Arizona, we don't know what's gonna happen with these three teams at this point.
No, it's a good take. I said I feel like this is one of those teams where that they could win the division 11-6, but they could be 9-8. So they don't have an overly. I think honestly, I might even have the surprise pick Seahawks. It's hard to bet against Stafford, but in the end of that career, like end of his career, I might even take the Seahawks over the Rams, only because of what we saw from Sam Darnold last year, and then having the receptions guy that get open, that fills the stat line, and Cooper Kupp and that security blanket, and then still having, they have Marquise Valdes-Scantling, if he catches the ball, hangs onto the ball, but they drafted a tight end in the second round from Miami, that Arroyo. So they put him with Noah Fant, with Sam Darnold, and Kenneth Walker, I feel like, is another one of those guys that's criminally underrated.
He's just
Good for 100 yards the old-fashioned way. And so, like, having that, and especially at the end of the year, say what you want, it's more a pass-heavy league, but that still matters in the NFL. And so having Cooper Kupp, having Scantling, having these other young guys, having two good tight ends, having a good run game, and their defense was kind of middle of the pack. But again, so I would put them in the middle of the pack, but I don't really think they have a daunting schedule, and I do believe enough in Sam Darnold where he's not going to probably, in my opinion, ceiling is winning a playoff game. Not true contenders. But I do feel like this is a team, I said, probably that 10-7 range, maybe an 11-6 because of the schedule. So, in my opinion, easier, at least on paper at the beginning of the year. But I do have the Seahawks as pushing for a playoff spot as well. Whether that be a 5 seed or a 7 seed, it's hard because I have other teams in the NFC North.
Yeah.
Most likely like the Vikings and the Packers.
they're gonna take the
fighting for those
spots.
playoff spots. So they'll be fighting for one of those playoff spots. But it'll be interesting.
We're on to Arizona here. 8-9 last year. They signed Josh Sweat goes down there. Calais Campbell he announced it's his last year. Love Calais Campbell. He's
I love him, but
staple
he's
in the
still
league.
playing.
Yeah. Zay Jones resigns. Trey McBride gets extended. So they've signed some dudes, but also it's Arizona. Marvin Harrison Jr. could come out and have a great year. Obviously, he wasn't as what everybody thought he would be last year. But my biggest thing is quarterback play, because it seems like Kyler Murray will have a great week, and then he'll come back after a Call of Duty double XP week and throw 3 picks. Like, that's kind of a joke, but also when you have a stipulation in your contract that says you have to watch this much film, you can't play stuff like that. It's kind of crazy as an NFL quarterback. They signed Jacoby Brissett as a backup, so if he gets hurt like he did last year, it's a very good possibility. I mean, Jacoby Brissett's a solid quarterback, get you a couple wins if you need them. But this team, James Conner's still the running back.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I thought he was gone, but I looked at it the other day and I was like, James Conner.
Yeah.
Remember when he played
As
for the
they're one.
Steelers?
Yeah.
Like they don't look that good on paper. I have them going 7-10. Like they'll win some games. They might be worse than 7-10, honestly, but like 7-10 just because like their schedule's a little light. Who knows if they're gonna be good or not? But also, Kyler Murray's still your quarterback, and I don't think Kyler Murray can get it. That's just my flat out opinion.
Yeah, and he surprised me early in his career with Murrayson, but like I have them finishing. Taking a step back. How this team won that many games last year, I don't know. Right? So I have them finishing like so probably 5-12, 6-11 is the ceiling. I just there's too many question marks. Like I said, but Kyler Murray's still athletic. One of my favorite young people that I am a believer on is Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
But he doesn't really have help. McBride's a good tight end. James Conner's been solid, and he's still playing. I'm the same way. But even being a Pittsburgh fan, like great story, but was probably a number 2 running back there. And so like every time I want to give up on him, and then that's just it. He'll have mediocre lines for 50 yards, and then he'll have a week where he has $150 for 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That being said, when that's your offense, your offensive line still kind of questionable. There is one thing that's kind of solid in the NFC West is the D line play.
Yeah.
And so with that offensive line, like they might steal a couple wins, but I have them finishing 5-12. I'm not a huge believer in Murray. So they still have some good defense, but Buda Baker's still above average line safety, so they still got decent with their cornerback plays. Like Calais Campbell, like I don't mean that any disrespect. I said when he was in Jacksonville, when he first came here,
Yeah.
potential like consistent, great defensive line. But I didn't know he was still on this. So, they're not. I don't need to keep polishing a turd. They're probably 5-12, 6-11. So I don't know how they won 8 games, which is too bad because that's another franchise that's kind of had to go through it. Yeah.
But roll on to our last team here, the 49ers. This is probably my boldest prediction I'm going to make. I have them going 13-4 after 6-11 year for 2 main reasons. Is Brock Purdy, if they can stay healthy with Trent Williams and that team, they lose Debo, but they still have IU. CMC is going to come back. We don't know if he's going to be as good, but CMC will come back. They still have George Kittle as my favorite NFL tight end. And they have Robert Saleh back as their defensive coordinator who took them to their Super Bowls. It's Kyle Shanahan's office, but it's Robert Saleh's defense is the only reason he got the job. But that defense is good. They still have Fred Warner. He's regressing a little bit old. But they still have Nick Bosa coming off the edge. Defensive line solid. But I have them going 13-14. I see them playing. I have them in the NFC Championship against the Eagles. Because if they can stay healthy, Brock Purdy has shown that he's not a world breaker. He can do what Shanahan wants in this West Coast offense that's based off emotions. They have Ricky Purcell, probably didn't say his name right, but out of Florida, the guy that got shot last year. He came back and played. But I feel like they're going to be good, and their defense is going to be solid again because Saleh, even when the Jets sucked, their defense was still solid because of Robert Saleh being their defensive coordinator / head coach. So I have them going 13-14 NFC Championship against the Eagles. You got to go play. You got to go play on the East Coast against the Eagles. But I really like the 49ers this year. If they can stay healthy. If they can't stay healthy, it'll be another shit show like last year.
Yeah.
Like how the hell? And they also traded Jordan Mason, so their running back depth is gone.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
So do you have? Let me go back to your Rams pick. So do you have them winning the NFC West? Then I take it. Then?
Yeah, and then I have the Rams at 2, and then it's going to be a tiebreaker for that last wild card spot with the Packers and Vikings.
Yeah.
Or if they slip up and one goes 9-8, the Rams are in there.
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny you say that because they were one of those teams you could count on until last year. But they said people don't realize just how many injuries, like literally on both sides of the ball from the beginning of the season. And I think that I don't know how much you read into it, but the old Shanahan name is between obviously his dad and then he's made his name for himself.
Yeah.
Or how many straight NFC Championship appearances were the Niners in? You could take it to the bank and with different teams. Going to the Super Bowl 19 and 21 and like being on the cusp a couple other years, like and McCaffrey. Like it's just I have this team probably if they go back to their potential. Like I am gonna say that they're gonna win the division. Like that was going to be one of my quote unquote. I don't know how bold of a prediction it is, but they'll be a top 3 or 4 NFC team just because I do believe in Shanahan, his offensive mindset, and not having the injuries. Purdy's not doesn't do anything flashy, but he's the same thing. 2 years ago, playing Patrick Mahomes, the stage wasn't too big for him, and like, do I know if he's worth that money? I don't know. I said, but I do think that he's a gamer.
Yeah.
George Kittle still got plenty of ball left, a couple years behind Kelsey as far as like younger, and so like I said, he's one of my favorite tight ends, favorite players. Just gets it done on just a good balanced player, great blocker. And then you got McCaffrey hopefully stays healthy. Brandon Ayuk is still a stud wide receiver, big body wide receiver. And then you said you still have Bosa coming off the edge. Like, there's too many things about last year where I thought that they would be like, oh, that's the easy pick just to go off of because what they've done the last couple of years prior. But I really thought that was a team that was going to make a lot more noise, and I know that injury had a lot to do with it. And I will say, I have them at least get into the divisional round, possibly. We'll get to that in a minute as far as the NFC Championship game, but definitely on that cusp of a short list, true contenders consistently with the ceiling. Again, it all comes back to bearing injury. But with that schedule and with that coaching, and I said Brock Purdy goes back to what he played in 22-23, I think the sky's the limit for San Francisco. And it's a team that's been there. Again, like for Chiefs and Philadelphia, they're on that short list of teams like, what have you done consistently for years, not just a flash in the pan year. They're on that list for. So I think San Francisco. I am going to go out. I'm going to say they're going to surprise.
Thank you for
people.
listening to Twitch and Block Sports Talk, the first
Stafford
edition.
I think
Hope
the
everybody
Niners get
enjoyed
back
all of
to
our
winning
takes.
the division
Please comment
this year.
down
I'm going
below
to say 11-6.
your favorite take that we made. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe,
recap prediction
and retweet. And
coming up next, we're gonna do
follow
our
on
playoff
X.
our playoff guesses.
But
or our playoff
we'll catch
rankings,
you guys
and then we'll
leading up into
wrap it up here.
week
So
one. Thanks
stay
for
tuned.
listening.